Hello, welcome to today's talk. We're going to talk a little bit today about rhetoric, about genre, about choices we make to talk to other people. And I think it's in particular pretty important for us to consider what we mean when we say other people. Other people can mean many different things. It can mean our best friends. It can mean people in our local community. It can mean people in our church. It can mean our family. It can mean our future selves. It can mean our dire enemies. When we talk to other people, we are trying to talk and build connections between the messages we want to send and the messages that we want them to receive. We are trying to build a connection between us and them. And that's in any case, whether we are talking to somebody who we're trying to hook up with or somebody we're trying to get into a fight with. We are trying to build a connection of some sort. When we write, we are trying to build an intentional connection where we are controlling the terms of that communication so that the person is trying to hear us in a particular way so that we can try to help a person hear us in a particular way for a particular meaning. And again, if we're writing somebody that we want to hook up with or somebody we want to break up with, our ways of writing are determined by that person and how we feel about them and how we want them to feel about us, both right now and after we're done writing. I want you to think about this sign. All the people marching behind me right now as I walk along the street in solidarity with my black brothers and sisters to proclaim that Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter. Say it with me. Black Lives Matter. We don't think of this necessarily as an act of writing, an act where we have to think about all those different elements of writing, who the audience is, what the purpose is, what the genre is. We don't think of this necessarily as writing, but think about the effects of those three words and the effects those three words have had on the world. It is a masterful piece of writing. It's a piece of writing that considered genre. What is a protest sign? What is a protest slogan? It's a piece of writing that considered audience. Who is being spoken to and how do we want to appeal to them? And by the way, the audience for this phrase is both those who believe wholeheartedly, who have always believed that Black Lives Matter, and those who are racist, who are scared, who want to say that all lives matter. The audience is full of people who are similar, people who are different, people who are hostile. Black Lives Matter. It's also a phrase that considers the way that it's delivered on a sign or in a chant or on a billboard, on a t shirt. Black Lives Matter. Our assignment for this second writing assignment is asking you to create something, but it's asking you to create something that is not an essay. Oh, no, there it is. Sorry. This is the no essay writing project, and it may seem weird for a writing teacher for in a writing class to ask you not to write an essay, but I want you to think about those issues of who your audience is, what your purpose is, what your genre is, what are you trying to accomplish, who you are, what ways might your words be delivered. I want you to think about all those steps, all those considerations in creating this project. And we have a focus for the project, of course, our book, the that we're reading right now, The Blind Spot, and I want you thinking about how you use that book to create meaning. We can go through any collection of protest signs online and see lots of great writing where people have considered what they want to say, who they want to say it to, what their genre is. Here is a white woman trying to decide how to march in support of George Floyd and black people who are killed by police. And she needs to think about what her position is, who her audience is, what she's trying to accomplish, and of course, the very genre of creating a protest sign. I understand that I will never understand, however I stand. Peace and justice. It's a fairly effective piece of writing. This one's even better. This one's multiple. Brown girls can do anything on her t-shirt. It's dope to be black until it's hard to be black. The father is holding a sign, "Stop killing us." And the daughter is holding a sign, "Please don't shoot my dad." And what's important to point out here is that this is all an act of writing. This is all an act of creating meaning for somebody else. Because if it's just the girl walking alone, or if it's just the dad walking alone, their individual sign isn't as meaningful as the construction of these people coming together. One white girl is carrying a sign, "I'd like to speak to the manager of systemic racism, please." And another one's "Black Lives Matter." That was not as effective. "No lives matter till Black Lives Matter. Say their names." "What color am I when I save your life?" Signed, a black nurse. We deserve more than justice. We deserve a better reality. We pay you to protect us, not to kill us. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Am I next? We can keep on going. The point here is to think about what is the meaning that you are trying to get across in any given genre that you choose, in any moment of writing. Who is your audience? Who are you? What are you trying to say? What is the genre? And how might that genre be brought across to other people? And then, more complex than that, not just who's your audience, who are your different audiences? Who are the people in different groups to which you're writing? And this brings us to our reading. When we're thinking about our reading for this week in particular, when we're thinking about group dynamics and how we bring across meaning, when we think about bias within groups, you have groups with which you identify. Perhaps when you write, you are trying to write to other groups. There's a pretty awesome story that is referenced in our reading for this week. And that story is, of course, the Sneetches. Now, I'm going to go ahead and read it to you. And I'm going to read it to you in part because I made you read something for me on camera last week for our exam. And in part because I think everybody needs to hear this story. But you know, if you think about genre choices, and you think about audience, and you think about creators, and you think about meaning, what Dr. Seuss did in this story was create something fairly powerful in a kid's Dr. Seussian verse. This is not the actual book that you would read with all the great pictures. This only has a select pictures because I didn't want to pay for the book so that I could show it to you. So, but it's worth picking up. Here it goes. The Sneetches. Now, the star-belly Sneetches had bellies with stars. The plain-belly Sneetches had none upon theirs. Those stars weren't so big, they were really so small, you might think that such a thing would not matter at all. But because they had stars, all the star-belly Sneetches would brag, "We're the best kind of Sneetch on the beaches." With their snoots in the air, they would sniff and they'd snort, "We'll have nothing to do with the plain-belly sort." And whenever they met some, when they were out walking, they'd hike right past them without even talking. When the star-belly children went out to play ball, could a plain belly get in the game? Well, no, not at all. You could only play if your bellies had stars, and the plain belly children had none upon theirs. When the star-belly Sneetches had frankfurter roasts, or picnics, or parties, or marshmallow toasts, they never invited the plain-belly Sneetches. They left them out cold in the dark of the beaches. They kept them away, never let them come near, and that's how they treated them year after year. Then, one day it seems, when the plain-belly Sneetches were moping and doping on the beaches, just sitting there wishing their bellies had stars, a stranger zipped up in the strangest of cars. "My friends," he announced in a voice clear and keen, "my name is Sylvester McMonkey McBean, and I've heard of your troubles, and I've heard you're unhappy, but I can fix that. I'm the fix-it-up chappie. I've come here to help you. I have what you need, and my prices are low, and I work at great speed, and my work is 100% guaranteed." Then quickly, Sylvester McMonkey McBean put together a very peculiar machine. And he said, "You want stars like a star-belly Sneetch? My friends, you can have them for $3 each. Just pay me your money and hop right aboard." They clambered inside. The big machine roared, and it clonked, and it bonked, and it jerked, and it burked, and it bopped them about. But the thing really worked. When the plain-belly Sneetches popped out, they had stars. They actually did. They had stars upon theirs. Then they yelled at the ones who had the stars from the start. "We're exactly like you. You can't tell us apart. We're all the same now, you snooty old smarties. And now we can go to your frankfurter parties." "Good grief," groaned the ones who had the stars at the first. "We're still the best Sneetches, and they are the worst. But now how in the world will they know?" They all frowned. "If which kind is what, or the other way around?" Then up came McBean with a very sly wink, and he said, "Things are not as bad as you think. So you don't know who's who. That's perfectly true, but come with me, friends. Do you know what I'll do? I'll make you again the best Sneetches on the beaches, and all will cost you is $10 eaches." "Bellies on stars are no longer in style," said McBean. "What you need is a trip through my star-off machine. This wondrous contraption will take off your stars so you don't look like the Sneetches who have them on theirs." And that handy machine, working very precisely, removed all the stars from their tummies quite nicely. Then, with snoots in the air, they paraded about, and they opened their beaks, and they let out a shout, "We know who is who! Now there is no doubt. The best kind of Sneetches are the Sneetches without." Then, of course, those with stars got frightfully mad. To be wearing a star now was frightfully bad. Then, of course, old Sylvester McMonkey McBean invited them into his star-off machine. Then, well, from then on, as you can probably guess, things got into a horrible mess. And the rest of that day, on all those wild, screaming beaches, the fix-it-up chappie kept fixing up Sneetches, off again, on again, in again, out again. Through the machines, they raced round and about again, changing their stars every minute or two. They kept paying money. They kept running through until the plain nor the star-bellies knew whether this one was that one, or that one was this one, or which one was what one, and what one was who. Then, after every last cent of their money was spent, the fix-it-up chappie packed up and he went. And he laughed as he drove in his car up the beach. "They'll never learn. No, you can't teach a Sneetch." But McBean was quite wrong, I'm quite happy to say. The Sneetches were really quite smart on that day. That day they decided that Sneetches are Sneetches, and no kind of Sneetch is the best on the beaches. That day all the Sneetches forgot about stars, and whether they had one or not. upon theirs. It's really quite a hopeful story, obviously, and it really kind of captures the problem with group dynamics and bias and how we learn our lessons about who we are and how we learn our lessons about our group and how we learn our lessons about who we think the other group is. What I really want you to pay attention to with that, other than the very clever story, is how Dr. Seuss uses that genre to pass along a very hopeful message. And it's particularly interesting when you start to think about the context of that message. Written in 1961, before the full civil rights movement, but after Dr. Seuss himself had written and drawn some pretty damn racist shit. He had. He had done some pretty racist material. But by the time 1961 comes about, he has a different idea. Now I can't tell you whether or not Dr. Seuss was fully rehabilitated from the racist stuff that he had done before, but I can tell you that the Sneetches has a powerful anti-bias, anti-good people message to say that there aren't good people or bad people or right people or wrong people, that your group is not right or wrong, but it just is. It's a little actually off the message of Black Lives Matter, because what we should also be paying attention to is, how did that one group get enough power to make the other group feel like their lives didn't matter? Maybe you had the opportunity to pick a genre, to pick an audience, to pick a message that makes us remember the real issues of bias and how power in groups often hurts some people. Start thinking about your project. Start thinking about your writing, about what you want to say, about the rhetoric you will use to persuade somebody else based on the project you create. I look very much forward to reading your non-essays, to hearing your non-essays, to experiencing your non-essays, as I hope the audience you intend looks very much forward, even if they don't know it's coming. I hope you have a great weekend. We will talk again next week. Until then, please remember, Black Lives Matter.